Okay, I guess final question then would be, um, your like I'm not sure if you get asked this a lot actually, because I was trying to, I was trying to think of what would what would not be your common, how was the Blair Witch, how is it making films, that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Um, what would you consider your like the positive and negative from the way things went with not just Blair Witch, I guess, but that kind of was like that put you at the pinnacle.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I mean, I think that, you know, the positives are, I'm talking to you right now. I talk to people like you all the time who are still, genuinely interested in the movie and are still inspired by it. And, to me, that's like the greatest reward.
a
Um,
legacy.
and, and the fact that it's given me a career that I've been able to, transfer it over to the television world and, have become a, fairly successful television director and, um, still be in the business and, obviously the people that I've met, my partners throughout the years and, Greg, who's still my partner and, all the fine artists that I've met, and not only making movies, but in the television world. Um, and and so and I've been able to make a pretty good living for myself and been able to raise my family and and for the first 10 or so years I was home most of the time. So I think that I was able to like see a lot of my kids actually day to day lives. I was able to share in that. um, so it's given me a really great life. um, and the negatives, I mean, you know, I think the biggest negative for me, and I think, I don't know, I think Dan is the same way. We've talked about it, but I can't remember completely. But, the idea that like when you, when you start, you seemingly start your career and, Dan and I had, and Greg, we had all, we had made movies before and we had failed. And, so it wasn't like our first movie. It wasn't like, hey, let's make a movie. And all of a sudden it's Blair Witch. Like we had gone through some pain of being a failed independent filmmaker for for almost 15 years before we made Blair Witch. So there is that, of course. But so you know the idea of going from like a no, like a nobody to one of the most highly successful independent films of all time. It puts it just put a lot of pressure on us.
Yeah.
And I think part of the reason why I didn't make a movie until Altered, which was 6 years later, which is because you know um, I was stuck. There was certain things that I was just kind of stuck. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do.
Hmm.
Um, and so and then the expectation of like, how do you follow up Blair Witch? How do you follow up this phenomenon? Like, and I don't say that just to be to think of myself as something special or
Yeah,
whatever.
no,
But
but you're definitely
it was
right.
it's a crazy movie. It's one of these
Yeah.
movies that like will be remembered for a long time. It's one of the classics. Not only horror but just in marketing is like this movie that like everybody knows about. It's just a weird movie that kind of was a
Hmm.
worldwide phenomenon. So
Yeah, like I feel like without sounding disrespectful, I think it was next gonna be next to impossible
oh yeah, I
to
mean,
top
I
that.
mean, and absolutely. I mean, it is impossible. You know. So I think that pressure was negative. Had a negative. And then a lot of the things that happened after Blair Witch. But I mean that's kind of like everyday life, man. Everybody makes
Hmm.
mistakes, and there's always things you go back and you're like, oh man, I wish I would have done that. I wish I would have done this, and so um, overall, the positives
Outweigh the
outweigh,
negative.
outweigh the negatives. And also when you have this kind of success and this kind of thing, it's a test of friendships. A lot of friendships get stronger. A lot of them, disappear, have a way of going away. So, there's some painful stuff in there that, I learned along the way. But, overall, like I said, I feel very fortunate to have been a part of it and to have been able to collaborate with, the team that we assembled. And, and it just, it's worked out really well.